Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy. Anyway, so what do you got for us today, Claire?
So today we're headed to the state where their tree, or their state tree, is the cabbage palm. It's the 27th state and was named by a Spanish explorer in 1513, Juan Ponce de Leon.
I want to say Michigan because I just read and I'm pretty sure they said it was the 27th.
Just out of curiosity, how do you think an explorer found its way to Michigan?
On foot.
Okay, well, I guess. Okay, so the land, the name of this particular state, means Feast of Flowers.
Oh, sounds like a beautiful state. Illinois. No, wait. Let's go with Maine.
Florida.
What?
I know.
I've lived in Florida. I would not say that's a feast of flowers.
I don't know. I was thinking the bougainvillea because that grows all over the place.
Fine.
Anyway, so we're headed to Florida. But before we head to Florida, I'm going to introduce to you the first of our fellers today, 24-year-old David Katz. He's born in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
Now, David would be diagnosed with... Oh, I
forgot how to read today, huh?
I forgot how to pronounce it. Dysmia?
What? What is
dysmia?
What is it?
I'll explain in a second. But he was diagnosed with that and ODD, which I kind of laughed at because it's odd.
Oh, yeah.
But the oppositional defiant disorder. But so he...
Yeah, they tried to say my son had that.
Which one?
The one that joined the army.
Maybe.
But it turned out it was his ADHD medication and it was a side effect.
Well, for everybody who else don't know, ODD is oppositional defiance disorder, which is a fancy way of saying you get mad or argumentative or defiant towards people of authority. So mom, dad, teachers, law enforcement, or just random people. I mean, you're not violent towards them or destructive. You're just like argumentative.
A mouthy son bitch.
Right. Now, the dysmia, which I feel like I'm saying wrong because it doesn't sound like a word I've heard, is just a real serious state of chronic depression, typically causing people to be withdrawn, fatigue, feeling of hopelessness, and irritability, which pair those together of you don't want to be around people, and when you are, you're argumentative and an asshole.
Sounds like a fun person to hang out with.
I think our sister might have this, actually.
Or her mother. It's genetic.
But anyway, which tends to make people isolate themselves, and it's just a vicious cycle of not good feelings that feed on the not good feelings and pulls you into a dark place.
Yep. You're right. Spot on with that one. Oh, for sure, our sister.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's going to lead David to being put on meds for emotional and psychological issues. Now, one of the meds, don't ask which because I don't know, it is also used to treat schizophrenia, and his dad would be all, he isn't schizophrenic, so why is he taking this trash? He doesn't need this. He would also be put on 2 antidepressants, and again, his dad is all, the risks are unknown for kids, and I don't like him being put on all these meds. And if you're thinking, gee, that sounds mighty difficult for a marriage, you'd be right, because fast forward to 2006, and they would start a divorce proceeding.
That's sad.
And what do people do in divorce when there's children involved, but battle over who gets to keep them? And that's what they also do because mom and dad don't agree on how to proceed forward with David and what's wrong with him or if there's something wrong with him. And now David is 12 at this point. His mom believing he needs a psychiatric evaluation and stronger meds. And his dad is saying, he don't need no meds. He needs
a good ass whooping.
No, he needs to attend a support group for middle school students.
What?
I did sing.
Is that a thing?
I don't know. Maybe in Maryland, but I was like, are there support groups for depressed kids? Because I feel like if they don't want to be around people, what's the support group for?
Okay, so all I heard was a support group for middle schoolers. I thought you were saying that there's a support group for people that are in middle school. I just thought that was called classmates.
Oh.
You left out the
don't know.
depressed middle schoolers.
Well, I don't know that his dad doesn't say that. He says he needs to attend a support group for middle school students. And I would like to know what he's talking about. Because it's just like a darty-eyed,
All right.
all right.
I'm sure there's lots of support groups for all kinds of things.
But this divorce and the custody battle is going to drag on. And in 2007, one of the filings, David's mom would state that David would go unwashed for days.
He's a boy.
And would be obsessed with his video games. He would started to refuse to go to school and the bathing.
I don't know who's harder to get to bathe, my teenage boys or my husky. They both act like the water is burning their flesh off.
At first, I thought you were going to say you're your husband. So it's like,
no.
So the teenage boys are the husky. Makes more sense.
Yeah.
But David's mom would ultimately decide that he needed to go to an inpatient facility, and he would spend 2 weeks in a psychiatric facility. He's now 13.
This poor kid.
And I don't feel like it's that surprising that someone who's struggling with the real world would dive into a virtual one for an escape. And that's essentially what David does he doesn't want to spend time around people, but he will be gaming for hours all the time. And his mom doesn't like that he's always on the video games. It doesn't matter what time of day, he'll play all night. So
did you see what time of year or what time of what year this is?
I did. 2007.
Okay.
Well, David's schoolmates would say when he's at school, he's antisocial, very quiet, but they did know he was a gamer. And then other kids would be like, no, you just need to talk to him. He's quiet, but when you talk to him, he's pretty cool. Now, there comes a time that his mom would be like, I'm done with these fucking games. So she would take his gaming controller so that he's not up at 3, 4 a.m. playing it. Now, mind you, she wakes up in the morning to get ready for work, and she finds him walking around the house in circles.
All right.
They would frequently start arguing over the TV. That would repeatedly end in calls to the police over stupid things because David's watching too much TV. And I was doing a lot of blinking when I was reading this because I didn't know people were calling 911 because their kid was watching too much TV. And that seems very abusive of that service. But David would also call 911 when she was being unfair and took his video games away. There was a time when she'd take his controller and lock it in her bedroom, and David would punch a hole in the door to get to them.
I sent you a video, I think, yesterday of pretty much that. Some mom turned off the internet, and her adult son, who was down in the basement, starts screaming like a lunatic. He breaks down the freaking door with an axe.
Oh.
I was like,
That escalated quickly?
My son likes to play video games, but he at least goes to work.
Right.
And bathes. Sometimes.
So by 2008, he's taken involuntarily to a wilderness school for teens in Utah.
That's not going to end well.
But that doesn't seem to take care of his antisocial behaviors.
Really?
And his mom would say that at this point, he would cry, get agitated, even collapse onto the floor into a fetal position. At one time, he'd lock himself in her car and start pounding his head with his hands, which would naturally end up with him being taken back to the hospital. He's treated twice in psychiatric facilities and prescribed more medications. And his dad, the NASA engineer, would cling to that he's never been diagnosed as being psychotic, and he is physically strong and mentally does not need drugs.
What?
He would also claim that David's mother was trying to use prescriptions instead of performing the work a parent should do, and that she had always been obsessed with using mental health professionals.
They're there for a reason.
Which I was confused why, if David and his mom don't get along, why didn't he go live with his dad?
Because then his dad would actually have to be around his little brat.
Well, so it was confusing to me because that seems like, okay, he's out of control. Why aren't you intervening? You think you've got all the answers? Then have him.
With my husband, when the children are not doing what they're supposed to, he's quick to tell me how he thinks I should parent, but not actually step into that role.
Mm-hmm.
He more or less takes a backseat to whatever I say. So if I vent about being frustrated with something the kids are or are not doing,
Yeah.
so I could see it that if him and I were to be divorced and I was having trouble with one of our kids.
Yeah, he's not going to take the problem on himself, but he'll point out how you should be doing it.
Right. And like if he were in my shoes, this is what he would do. And it's basically my fault that it got to this level to begin with.
Yeah. And then doing the hands in the air thing of, no, you got it.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah,
because I kind of get it.
Mm-hmm. Well, fast forward to 2009 with another 911 call. His mom would say, he's sitting there wrestling me with the cable cord to the TV. I've had enough of this child. He's been abusive for over 2 years now.
I have flashes of that Thanksgiving case I did.
I thought the same thing.
If you tell me he takes a hammer to his mother and then boinks her,
Ew.
I...
That's not where this is going.
All right.
Now, it shouldn't be a surprise, but David was not a good student. He didn't want to be at school, so it was just like, I don't feel like it should be a surprise that he wasn't real studious, especially with the whole staying up late doing the gaming.
Yeah, he was sleepy.
Now, he would turn 16 in 2009 and write a letter to the judge saying, Dear Judge, today is my birthday, and I turned 16 years old. I live with my mom and have been wanting to live with my dad. My mom is pretty crazy.
Oh.
She's called the police on me about 20 times for pretty much nothing, like coming home a little late or something. She also gets drunk and starts yelling at me and poking me and doesn't leave me alone. She has hit me before and always takes my stuff because she feels like it. I hate her more than anything in the world. Sincerely, David Katz.
I like that you read that like it was some nice, sweet letter. I've what about bobbed my 19-year-old. It's dinner time and I'm sitting there shaking his bed, poking at him, and he's acting like he can't hear me or feel the fact that I'm shaking him and just continues to nap. It's 5 o'clock. What are you doing? Get up, get up. And I'll sit there and shake the shit out of his bed. So, is the poking and messing with him because he's not normal sleeping hours? I kind of feel for her. Tell me that the judge is like, sure, go live with your dad.
For whatever reason, that doesn't happen.
Oh.
Now, there are the whole 911 calls that I've told you go back and forth, whether it's his mom or David calling 911. And even by this point, the attorneys are tired of hearing all of the bitching. The one attorney will even tell him, this is an Xbox court. Like, stop bringing it up. But he would not go live with his dad, despite sending yet another letter to the judge a few months later. And you would think that with all the 911 calls, they would be interested in an alternative situation for him, but I don't know why that was never tried out. David would eventually graduate high school, and then that's when he'll move in with his dad. He would attend the University of Maryland after a few years of floundering, where he would try to pursue a major in environmental science and technology. Now, David would grow into being a pretty good gamer because, like I told you, that's pretty much all he did in his spare time. Now, despite his mother wanting him to go bathe or go sleep or focus on any of the other things, it was the gaming that he thrived at. His handle was bread or sliced bread. He would get to the point where he would enter gaming competitions. So I didn't realize, the Madden Football game?
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize, I know I've heard it before if there are professional gamers out there, but in the back of my head, I just assumed they were people who helped develop the games. I didn't realize it's a whole thing. I feel a little surprised that I wasn't more aware of. Madden puts on basically like the real NFL, but there's a virtual version of that.
Yeah. When my boy went to college, they had EA Sports was
doing all the championships.
I was like, wait, you can get a degree in EA Sports? What?
Well, so I'm not talking about going to school for it.
But I'm just saying, I couldn't imagine going into debt for college to say you're a professional gamer.
Well, so you wouldn't even need the college side of it.
Yeah, I get that.
But so Madden puts on these championship games and the winnings are pretty crazy. Like if you get upwards to like the end of it, for example, this year is having a share of $1.7 million. Now, mind you, it's over a series of tournament-style games. David would actually win a few tournaments, like they were $10,000 ones in 2017. But like I said, there's some crazy pro gamers that collectively like 7 figures over several tournaments. But just lunacy to me that you're playing a video game and you're earning 7 figures.
That's pretty crazy. I have no talent.
But EA Sports would describe David's 2017 gaming as the most exciting moments in all of the 2017 NFL Club Series championships, which I would imagine would be like the best moment ever and really fuel the pursuit of being a gaming professional for David.
Mm-hmm.
He would win the Buffalo division, and when the Bills, the Buffalo Bills would do a tweet, like the Buffalo Bills feller poses with David at the championship thing, and they tweet it out. But David is like expressionless. Like he doesn't look like somebody who just won money doing something he enjoys, let alone being next to an NFL person for like the whole thing. It's a weird picture.
He don't care about the NFL.
Well, he doesn't seem thrilled about it. He's just...
Why are you touching me? Yeah.
The on-air announcer would say that getting Katz to open up and talk about anything was like pulling teeth. It did seem odd that someone who didn't tend to enjoy being around people would choose to participate in face-to-face tournaments with like big crowds and all that. Like if you talk to other gamers within the Madden community, they're super social. They talk the expected level of crap and argue while they're gaming, but are super close and will hang out, talk about their families, because they're generally all traveling to these events that they'll run into each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a pretty social group. So I just thought it was weird he gravitated towards that when he doesn't want to be around the people. And naturally, when people like after or before championships, if they meet up and have dinner and drinks and anything, David would not participate in that. And when anybody would ask him how he's doing, because they would recognize him from when they've seen him before, he would give it like answers like, don't worry about it, or keep your focus on what you need to focus on, and I'll focus on what I need to focus on.
Right.
So you don't...
He's kind of being an ass.
Mm-hmm. He's not making friends like that.
Yeah.
So now he's like 24 years old. David would head to the Good Luck, Have Fun game bar in Jacksonville, Florida, as a participant in the Madden NFL 19. Which launched August 7th. And the tournaments are like you would think, that there's like little mini ones and the winners move forward and the losers eliminated and so on and so forth until you have a handful of players left for larger events that are live streamed until the final game, and then there's a winner. But like I said, it's a whole thing. But it's not all in one place. So it's like all the events move around. But the Madden Bowl would be scheduled for February 7th. So just like real football, the pregame things start in August and then it takes a while.
Yeah.
3 million players would participate.
That's a lot of people.
Now, mind you only have to be 16 years or older, live in the US, Canada, Mexico, the UK, or Germany to compete. And I didn't realize it was so extensive. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot.
So we're headed into one of those games on August 26th, 2018. The games are being live streamed since it started early August, so we're a couple weeks in. The tournaments would be over a couple days.
Yeah.
So that's where I was telling you.
That's because there's a lot of people.
Well, no. These particular ones in Florida. They'll do the day before and then the next day for the elimination things.
Mm.
There'd be 130 to 150 participants and fans that would turn up to the event in person, and then they would live stream the games for all the other people. And hundreds of thousands of people will tune in to watch that, which is still, you're watching somebody play a video game.
I don't get it.
It's not. I don't. And it's even more than that. I assume you haven't watched NFL Madden things, but you watch their screen, but then their little in-person, in-picture thing is also there. So you can watch them play while you're watching them play.
Oh, fun.
I don't understand. I mean, more power to everybody who's making money doing this. And I guess the fact that it keeps going and it's a whole thing. I'm just sitting here scratching my head because it's definitely not something I partake in.
Okay.
So another gaming participant would be 27-year-old Taylor Robertson, who he would hail from Ballard, West Virginia, and was also a returning competitor. He won typically 72% of all of his games. He was also a new Paul.
How many people usually win?
I don't know. It seems like 72% of all your games is a pretty high winning streak thing. Not really, I guess, a streak, but
high average.
Yeah. Then we have Eli Clayton, who's 22, and he came from Woodland Hills, California. He'd been playing Madden since he was 6 years old. Now, the year before, he had placed in the top 5 in the Madden Championship Series. He's the 6th highest money earner that would be going on to the competition and was saving up all of his winnings so he could pay for college, which I thought was super cool. He is really young and making a lot of money.
Yeah, his dad is super proud.
But you get the idea. People are coming from all over everywhere. They're in Florida. They're ready to do their gaming. So the first day, David would win twice during the pool play and then lose once. I think the first round, like the first day, must be like warm-ups or something, or like just getting used to whatever scenery. I don't know what it is, but
Feeling everybody out.
Yeah.
Getting comfy.
Yeah, he would do that play. He would win 2, lose 1. Now, when he loses that game, his opponent goes to shake his hand, do the whole good game, man kind of thing.
He acts like a little bitch.
Yeah, David just gives him a cold stare. Now, the next day, David shows up wearing the exact same clothes he was wearing the day before. Now, this time, it's for single elimination tournament style gaming. Now, David's tournament would end up tied by the second half. Then David would recover the ball with an onside kick. His opponent would pause the game, questioning the play, but it turned out to be a legal move and some new rule in the gaming world that David figured out how to exploit and would end up getting to keep the ball. And that particular feller was like, it's got to feel like he's technically playing by the rules, but he played a little dirty, is what I took it as.
How can you pause it and be like, that's illegal? Doesn't the game referee it?
Well, no. So you know how you can do like a timeout in regular NFL? It sounds like when he paused it, he called a timeout to do a
challenge the play.
Uh-huh.
Gotcha. Instead of calling a timeout to challenge the play, I totally pictured grown-ass adults pressing pause on the remote control, pointing at the monitor and being like, he's cheating.
That was bullshit. Pretty much, yeah. That's spot on. But I imagine David was doing like a smug, he got his way.
Shit-eating grin, like,
yeah, like a,
I'm better than you. Take that, bitch.
You gotta also bear in mind this is somebody who doesn't chit-chat.
Play well with others.
Yeah, he's just quiet when he games. Like, it's a weird, even though he's different, I realize everybody can play in a certain way, but he doesn't participate in the community side of things. He doesn't want to be anybody's friend. He's there literally to compete and that's it, and he doesn't want to be part of any of the social parts. Up to and including being a good sport of when you lose. But his exploiting that rule didn't help him, and he would lose the game. And mind you, it's elimination, so he's cut from the whole thing.
Oh.
And boy, is David devastated. I feel like he was prepared to win the whole thing, and that's why he came in with like a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and like, he's here to win kind of thing and not to be social. And after he loses...
He's real upset.
Yeah, since he literally battled with his mother over his gaming time, and I feel like he's got a whole awful lot to prove, and it just evaporated in a bit. But this 24-year-old toddler was super pouty, refused to shake the hand of his opponent before stomping off. And I feel like during his stomping off, again, with all of his life goals devastated, and everything else in his life isn't going the way he wants, blah, blah, blah. And what do you do when you fail at the only thing that you've ever enjoyed? Why, you come back in with 2 handguns and start shooting up the place. And that's exactly what David does. He walked out of the game room only to return a few minutes later with a 9mm pistol that he had stuffed into his waistband that he wouldn't use, and a .45 caliber pistol with a laser sight. So, mind you, the room he walks into is super crowded. With spectators watching the other tournaments, you had to turn sideways to kind of squeak through. There were so many people in there, and there's practically no security. So when David raises his pistol with that laser sight at Elijah's chest, who is now in the throes of another game, apparently in some coveted spot that's like the featured gamer area, Elijah was super popular and a talented gamer. He would be smiling as he's gaming and kind of turn back to his game. I don't know if he just didn't really see what David was doing because he's trying to play. So if you're kind of picturing the whole he's gaming kind of looks, but it's also a room full of people. So
yeah, to assume that he spotted one specific person.
And mind you, all of this, it's live streaming.
Oh.
Other people will see that there's a red laser dancing erratically on Elijah's chest, and then it would disappear for a second and then come back, only this time it's steady and right on his heart. And that's when David squeezes the trigger, shooting Elijah twice in the chest. Elijah will slump into his gaming chair where he dies moments later.
Oh my gosh.
Mind you, when David starts shooting, games are going on, again, live streamed, and they would also pick up the sounds of him firing. At 1:34 was when that red dot was on Elijah's chest. Now it's full-fledged panic. People are terrified and screaming. The live stream video is cut, but the audio stays on. And I can't imagine something more terrifying than to have to hear the screams and the shooting. Other than being there, of course.
Well, yeah. But could you imagine being a family member of somebody that was there and you're watching it from home?
I'm not going to lie, I don't know that I would watch it.
I don't know that I would either.
I don't watch regular NFL. I don't find video game NFL being any more riveting.
I'd like to think that if my son was getting to play for money, that I would at least have it on in the background. But to start hearing a bunch of shooting, I don't know that I necessarily wouldn't assume it's a game. I mean, like, I didn't know that they were shooting in the NFL.
It's new style.
That's horrible.
But it's panicky. You've got a whole heap of people trying to escape out of a room. David is still shooting. People are trying to leave. The window panes are cracking into 1,000 pieces. More screaming, moaning as people are getting hit with bullets. And then there's the normal whole pop, pop, pop of David's gun. One feller, Tony Montagno, would be sitting on his back towards David when...
Sitting on his back?
Did I say sitting on his back? I heard it, but that's not what I read. So Tony would be sitting with his back towards David when David comes in.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah, he's not sitting on his back. It's not some contortionist shit. But when David starts shooting, and like, since all of this, obviously I'm breaking it down, it takes me longer to paint the picture for you than as it's happening. So when the shooting happens, it's like, when he's got his back to him, he doesn't know what's going on and just feels something hit his lower back that's really hot. And he spins around to see David and then realizes he's got a gun and dives for cover behind an overturned table. But fearing that David would come over to finish him off, Tony picks himself up and decides to try to head for an exit where other people are also trying, like, clawing and trampling each other on their way out because it's too small of an area for a lot of people to try to squeeze through.
Single file.
No, another feller was by Tony, Timothy, and Salamino. Now, he was right near Tony when the shooting started. He would get hit in the chest, and another bullet would go through his wrist and tear through his hand. He would make it outside with Tony when he is hit again in his hip, his middle finger now hanging off of his palm. And his escape leaving a trail of blood. But when he makes it out the door, stumbling into a nearby restaurant, he'd make it into Hooters. The cook would come to his aid, getting him to safety, putting pressure on his wounds, and bear hugging him to stop the bleeding. Because I feel like he's got so many holes in him that it's just easier to hold on to him.
Yeah.
But Tony would try to follow Timothy, but would see people falling over and moving around something when he looked down and saw that it was Taylor Robertson on his back with his mouth open, staring up to the sky. Tony's knees would buckle because he was fairly friendly with Taylor, and he knew that he was 27, he just became a dad, was the nicest guy you could have come across, and he's just dead on the ground and people are stepping all over him.
That's sad.
Now, Tony is panicking, thinking David came outside, so he tries to go back inside, since it's just a frenzy outside. He tries to get into the bathroom, but they crack the door and say that there's no room before shutting it in Tony's face. So Tony gives up and lays on the floor and is committed to pretending to be dead while thinking of his wife and 2 little girls in Texas.
That is awful.
Oh, I can't even imagine of... You try. They couldn't have. I don't know how many people were shoved into that bathroom, but I can't even imagine cracking it open and being like, "There's no room," and shutting it on somebody who's bleeding.
No.
But fortunately, first responders were in the middle of a training exercise across the street when the shooting takes place. So by 1:36, they're over there rendering aid to whomever they can, and they just barge in without any protective gear or any idea of where the shooter is.
Yeah, they need to be trained a little bit better. Because that is dangerous as shit.
Dude, I couldn't believe it as, like, since they have the live stream thing, the shooting started at 1:34. By 1:36, you have first responders there.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Now, mind you, it's really just, it's not like they were on call. They just heard some shit, people screaming, seeing them running out of the building, and they just fly into
first responder mode.
Helping.
Yeah. Which, good job on them. They all picked the correct field.
Well, it's crazy that they were there when they were.
They just need to learn to slow down a little. You don't run into the burning building without your mask on.
Well, you figure the chaos this had to have been of you've got so many people running, and some people drove themselves to the hospital.
That's safe.
Some people were just like, they're running all over the place, and nobody really knows what everybody else who doesn't know what exactly happened, who did it, what's going on, where did he go. David fired a total of 12 shots, killing 2 people and wounding 10 others before he turned the gun on himself, placing it in his mouth and squeezing the trigger one last time.
He only shot 12 bullets?
Yeah.
Like 5 of them went in the one dude.
That was unfortunate for him. But,
it's
not funny. No.
Well, I just pictured that dude standing in front of the gun doing jumping jacks or something that he caught all those bullets.
It was unfortunate. It really was.
He only shot 12. Are they sure?
So keep in mind when he starts shooting, it's 134 and people are already over there at 136 and he's already dead. So this happens so incredibly fast. That's why I was saying it's just like, I know me telling it to you of like, this scene is so chaotic and so much is going on that when everybody starts like it's a stampede kind of thing, David is already dead. They literally could have just sat there and like
waited for help.
Yeah, he shoots 12 times, and I think some of the people, the injuries were not necessarily shooting related, because it's just they trampled themselves or the glass or like all the things.
Yeah.
And also when I read initially the first article that said that feller made it to Hooters and he credited the staff or the employee that helped him as saving his life, I pictured a very busty gal, scantily clad, saving his life. And then when I found out it was the cook, I was like, yeah.
The cooks at Hooters are dudes.
I know. Well, I didn't know it was a cook, but I figured like the hostess rendered aid.
Yeah.
But I figured, what kind of fantasy? Like, he just...
It sounds like the start of a weird porno.
It really does. But that feller would have several surgeries on his hand. Now, one bullet would remain in his chest because it would be too dangerous to remove. And again, he would credit his life being saved because of the quick actions of that Hooters cook. Now, several lawsuits would be filed since there wasn't security in place at that venue for the competition. And it also wasn't meant to hold that many people, and there weren't enough emergency exits for the amount of people they stuffed in there. The fire marshal would actually close down the place since their game room wasn't even approved part of their plans. I don't know if it was supposed to be just as like a dining thing or a side room, but they weren't supposed to have that many people. They were beyond capacity, you know?
I guess after a mass tragedy anyway.
I feel like, yeah, probably.
Close up shop, start someplace else.
EA Sports would cancel the rest of the tournaments and donate the $1 million winnings to the shooting victims. And evidently there's an area of law called premises liability, and essentially it's the duty of property owners and event organizers to ensure that people are protected from foreseeable harm, and that's so people don't get hurt at whatever event. And in that certain lawsuit, they didn't have any security in place, and it wasn't meant to hold that many people, so they do end up settling. I don't know what the settlement was, but for that case, I just thought the whole thing was wild. And talk about, this might be in poor taste, but teach your kids how to be not sore losers.
Yeah.
Because that was a grown-ass man who had a tantrum. Also, maybe have legitimate dreams. Not saying you can't be a professional gamer, but I feel like if 3 million people participate and there's only like 6 who are professionals, the odds aren't real spectacular that you can do that for a living.
You mean like us? Us wee podcasters living our dream.
It's not exclusive.
Yeah.
But I sent you his picture in our email if you want to take a gander, because I think he looks like he's drugged. And then I also sent you a picture of, you can see the game screen that they stream, and then where it's like the picture in picture. And then it's also got the picture of where the Buffalo Bills tweet the congratulations and how he doesn't look real enthusiastic.
It didn't come over.
That's weird. Well, I'm gonna text it to you then.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Sure done diddly did. It's not what I pictured.
Well, I think he looks depressed and sickly. He doesn't look as dirty as I thought he would be. I pictured long, greasy hair, but
I pictured fat, long, greasy hair, pimply skin.
he doesn't look like he sleeps well.
No. But then again, he probably stayed up all night the night before this picture
Probably.
was practicing. He was studying for the test.
But the next picture is like I was telling you with the how it streams, and then the corner picture are the people competing.
Mm-hmm.
The next picture is one of the victims that died, and then the second one who died, and then that third one is the tweet where again he's like,
Our sister makes that face.
yeah. I was reading it. I was like, oh, because she is a little argumentative
And withdrawn.
Mm-hmm. I did think all of it was sad. And not to say that if he had gone to live with his dad, he wouldn't have gone crazy, because I think he wouldn't have been on any meds and maybe he would have gone crazy earlier. But I think he was very much a sick individual.
I feel like you have to be. The fact that he even brought guns with him, I think is a red flag that he was planning.
Crazy little side piece on that one. I think that's the wrong word. Side note.
Yeah.
But so he did buy the guns in Maryland legally, because at that point in time, you only if you have any sort of mental issues was voluntary, or it was considered voluntary information. So they would ask, but if you said no, you could still end up getting a gun. Like there was no verify that you're not a Looney Tune, or that you've been committed, or you're on any sort of medication for mental health issues.
Wow. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Where did he get them? Well, I guess because he was winning.
Yeah. I figured he was a bum on his couch, so whatever money he won, he really didn't have much to pay for. And I think he slept in his car. I think he did he drove down in the clothes that he had and slept in his car, if he even slept, and then did his little gaming thing.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mind-fucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.